And welcome back to the Hot Lap. It is F1 Friday in Bahrain, and McLaren are looking to reign supreme, particularly Oscar Piastri. But let's be fair, there's nothing, I think, to pick between Oscar and Lando Norris. Oscar was fastest in FP2. It is looking very tasty. I probably couldn't pick either of them. We're going to have to wait till qualifying, aren't we? So this was FP1, and who was fastest? Well, no, we don't know yet, because these are the special guests of FP1. We had both Ferrari, Red Bull, Vesti in the Mercedes. We had Drogovic in the Aston Martin, Hayakawa back again, but in a different guise. Yeah, we need to collect all the different uniforms, don't we? And Browning in the Williams, who nearly had a whoopsie with Alexander Albon, and obviously Beganovic. I probably got that wrong, didn't I? And Iwasa, obviously in the Red Bull and the Ferrari, respectively. So what were the results of FP1? Well, sadly, none of the rookies. It was Lando Norris fastest, Pierre Gasly in second, and Lewis Hamilton in third. But FP1, let's be honest, I'm gonna rain down who was fastest, etc. Sadly, though, if we're being honest about FP1, it really isn't relative, because it takes place during the day in the very hot conditions, and neither qualifying or the race are going to be in those hot conditions, but FP3 will be, sort of. So here we are. Here is who's fastest, who's not. We have Lando Norris on a 1:33.204. Yeah, a lot slower than testing. They were in the late 120s, weren't they? 129s, I think, or ish. Pierre Gasly second, just a couple of tenths off, but Lewis Hamilton half a second off Lando, Alexander Albon in fourth, Esteban Ocon fifth, and then it's Nico Hulkenberg, Jack Doohan, Liam Lawson, Yuki Tsunoda, and Oscar Piastri. Remember, no Max Verstappen. Gabriele Bortoleto in 11th, Isaac Hadjar 12th, Luke Browning in the Williams 13th, Beganovic in the Ferrari in 14th, Lance Stroll 15th, Felipe Drugovich. I mean, when you actually look at them, they're really close to each other, those two, aren't they? Rio Hayakawa, 2 seconds off the pace in 17th in the Haas. Esteban Ocon up there, though, with this 1 second off, wasn't he? Mr. Vesti in the Mercedes, and Kimi Antonelli nearly last, apart from Iwasa, who in the Red Bull was penultimate, let's say. But sadly, Kimi Antonelli only managed 3 laps because of something to do with a water leak, I believe. But it sadly meant he ended up being in those pits far too long for him, which was really sad. But then we go forward to free practice 2, where much more representative times at a much more essentially, when they were doing free practice 2, that's the time of the race on Sunday. And it was Oscar Piastri, the 1:30.505. In second, just shy by a tenth and a half was Lando. Third, half a second shy, was George Russell. Joining just over half a second shy, being Charles Leclerc. And then Kimi Antonelli in 7th. Is that the highest place he's been, I think, in practice so far this year? This is the full rundown, if you wanted to know. We have Oscar Piastri fastest, as I've already mentioned. Kimi Antonelli 5th, 7 tenths off. Then it was Isaac Hadjar in 6th, faster, the fastest Red Bull car in the RB, faster than Max Verstappen by just under a tenth. Significant, maybe. Lewis Hamilton about half a second off Charles Leclerc, but he did get balked on his fastest lap, but still. Ollie Behrman 9th, and yeah, let's be fair, hundredths close to Mr. Hamilton. Then it was Carlos Sainz in 10th, Alex Albon in 11th. Essentially nothing between those two Williams. Gabriele Bortoleto 13th, and Jack Doohan, Fernando Alonso in 15th. Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, Yuki Tsunoda, Lance Stroll, and then Nico Hulkenberg. Yeah, quickly give you, can I just see if we can make this full screen and give you the absolute full, no, we can't give you the full rundown. That's something completely different. There we go. There, okay. Not really, can we? No, we can't really. So scrap that idea. Anyway, moving on. And moving on we will, because this is the team's best sector rankings. So sector 1, basically 2 long straights, and that was Mercedes. And we know they seem quite fast in this straight line. Anyway, but then after that, it is dominated by McLaren and McLaren. So Ferrari, not too bad in sector 1 and sector 2. About a tenth off in sector 1, about 2.5 tenths off in sector 2, then they fall to a tenth and a half in sector 3. Part of me's wondering This is obviously their ideal lap, where the Ferrari are maybe overheating their tyres just a bit, but no doubt it does seem to be, when you look at the sectors, etc., it does seem to be McLaren definitely have an advantage. Then it's Mercedes, and then very much, I think, Ferrari, Racing Bulls and Red Bull. I think Ferrari and Red Bull may well be fighting for the third fastest car/team come qualifying and the actual race. And at one point, Lewis Hamilton on the mediums was fast. He was faster than other people on the soft, which was really significant. That was quite the solid medium lap. So there is some hope for you Hamilton fans out there in that Ferrari. Now, let's quickly talk about Aston Martin. They've not been particularly good. Aston Martin, they were slower today than they were 2 years ago. I mean, massive exclamation mark. So in Bahrain 2023, they did a 130.907. Amazing. Then in Bahrain 2025, it was a 131.825. So they were 9/10 slower, just over 9/10 slower than they were in 2023. I mean, what is going on with this car? Good, thank goodness Adrian Newey is there. And you have to start to question, will Adrian Newey now force himself to do something about the absolute disaster, potentially, that the Aston Martin car is? And let's be fair, it's been Lance Stroll getting all the points because of Fernando Alonso, partly bad luck, partly spinning off in the wet in Australia. Yeah, not particularly good at all. So this is the Sakir comparison. And let's talk about 24 versus 25 this time. So they're only, though, 4 teams have seemingly gone faster than last year, not 2 years ago. Obviously, you have McLaren about 3/10 faster, just shy. Racing Bulls just shy of 3/10. Sauber just over 2/10, and Alpine just over 1.5. Then you got Ferrari, who were nearly 3/10 slower at this point last year, along with Williams, and then half a second for the Red Bull Racing. Oh dear. Mercedes 6.5. Haas team 7/10 slower. But once again, the biggest outlier, just like 25 to 23, seems to be Aston Martin. Oh dear. Now, Red Bull have come out, or at least Red Bull in the guise of Christian Horner, and he's basically saying it's impossible for Verstappen to repeat Suzuka heroics in Bahrain. This is on motorsport.com. So let's have a look at it. So Red Bull team principal, Horner, he fears McLaren is a few tenths too quick for any of its rivals with a repeat of that Suzuka victory. Oscar Piastri to top the times, over teammate Lando Norris in that second, more representative practice session. And having sat out FP1, Verstappen was down to 7, 8/10 behind, with Yuki Tsunoda 18th. He was conducting setup experiments to help him settle. Now, according to the team boss, Horner is basically saying McLaren are in a class apart this weekend, as the hot and abrasive circuit looks set to favour the Papaya squad. And I kind of agree with them. Now, can Red Bull overnight do magic with the setup? Yes, we've seen that before, a la Suzuka, and then come back to win. I wouldn't rule it out, but I'm going to suggest it's less likely in Bahrain than Suzuka, simply because of the abrasive circuit. And when we looked at the test, McLaren were very good at looking after their tyres. And as we said in our preview, in Bahrain, this is going to be the first hot race of the year, really, pretty much down to pure luck, because Australia, China and Japan were meh, let's say, in terms of the weather. You're probably not going to be getting a suntan, but you probably will here. And therein lies the massive exclamation mark. So it's going to be really interesting to see who looks after their tyres. There are rumours that Ferrari are going to struggle with their tyres. I mean, they kind of did in China and Japan come the end of the race. It just didn't quite have enough, did they? So it's going to be, well, potentially eye-opening. And when I say eye-opening, is this going to be the first real test of these cars? The first real... the first honest view, let's say, on who is going to be faster going into the season. I think this Saudi Arabian, we're really going to see now, over the next 3 or 4 races, who has got it and who is not in terms of potentially running for that championship. We know most likely it's going to be McLaren. It may well be a McLaren driver winning both the drivers and the constructors. I'm sure Max Verstappen and others are going to have something to say about that, but will they be able to have something to say about that if they don't have the car? Well, I'm quite excited for qualifying to see what happens, but everyone, I think, is expecting a McLaren 1-2, a McLaren, front row. And at this point, if they don't get a front row, I think always questions will certainly be asked. If you've made it to the end, though, that is absolutely amazing. If you are not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. give us a massive smile. If you are subscribed, you just watching this is more than enough for us. But if you want to do anything more, hit that like button, comment below. Let me know, even if it is the word comment. I know I'm talking about. And above all else, stay safe. And we'll speak to you soon. And of course, thanks for watching.